Welcome to the Happy Mindset. Today's episode is episode number 79, and today's episode is called Anxiety Talks. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about anxiety and how to feel it, how to reframe it in a way where you're not resisting the anxiety as much as you might be at the moment. So the thing is with anxiety, I don't think anybody really likes feeling it. I don't think it's something that we're grown to believe is a good thing to feel. What most of us seem to want is to have confidence, because confidence seems to give us the ability to do things. That's what it seems like, But with anxiety, in my experience, there's no real getting around it. It's part of the process of doing something new. It's part of the process of growing into a different person. I kind of see anxiety as a large part of the development psychologically of a person. So if you're not doing anything new, chances are you're not growing as a person. And if you are doing something new, then chances are you're going to experience some feelings of anxiety. I don't think I've met anybody who is doing something new, who challenges themselves, that doesn't have an experience of feelings of anxiety from time to time. So in saying that, today's episode is about reframing anxiety in a way where you don't see it as such a bad thing. It's one of those things that when you start seeing an emotion as the enemy, you'll tend to try and avoid it. So you'll start avoiding situations that trigger that emotion, and you'll start seeing it as the enemy, and the enemy becomes something that will magnify more and more into like a monster in your mind. Today's episode is about actually befriending that emotion rather than turning it into an enemy to be feared. Because the thing is, you're going to fear an enemy, but you're not going to fear a friend. So it's best to look at it in a way where you can start seeing the benefits to anxiety. So like I said, anxiety can be perceived as one of those feelings that are the entry point to doing something new. The entry point, you can associate something in your mind as something that is going to help you to grow into a different person. The reason that you're at a certain level right now, one of the large reasons for that is that you haven't moved through that anxiety yet. But by noticing that anxiety, you get these opportunities, these windows of time where you can feel that anxiety, you can learn from that anxiety, and you can move forward. So when you tend to resist the anxiety less, a natural byproduct of that I've experienced is just confidence. And confidence comes from that lack of resistance to the anxiety, that belief in yourself. So just as a writer, as somebody who likes asking questions, I'll give you a few questions to start reframing how you perceive anxiety. So it's best to do this in like a quiet space. You can think of it as, you can do this meditation. Like a meditation, you can often just reflect on a question. That can be your meditation. That's what I'll often do that's what I'll do sometimes. I'll reflect on a question. And it gives me that practice of just reflecting on a question. I'm not analyzing the question. That's very important to keep in mind. Put the question to your forefront in your mind, and you sit there. You don't look for answers. You don't search for answers. You just reflect on it. So a good question for anxiety is, what is the anxiety trying to teach me? That's a good simple question to get started with. You'll learn a lot from that question alone. Another thing to do is, in those moments where you can be by yourself, pay attention to how the anxiety feels in your body. So if there's anxiety coming up for you, instead of resisting it, just let it come up. Let it come up and see what happens from that. There are two simple things. There are two things that have helped me, that continue to help me. If you listen to this podcast, you're somebody who wants to learn new things, wants to improve their life, wants to change as a person. So in order to do that, anxiety is going to be an emotion that you face. And so by not demonizing it, we're giving it a chance to actually be there, to feel through those emotions and to up level. Like as an example from doing this podcast, I've noticed that my resistance to the anxiety that comes up from doing these podcasts has lessened over time. That's, I guess, from experience. It's also from actually letting the anxiety be there. I think at the start when I was doing the podcast, I had a tendency to really resist the anxiety. I tried to shove it out of my mind and out of my body, but that just made the thing worse. Over time, with acceptance of the anxiety, it's become less of an issue when it comes up for me on the podcast. So that's the simple principle. It's whatever you resist will persist. So we're going to break that chain by turning an enemy into a friend. There is no reason why it isn't a friend. The thing is, when you start looking at things this way, like anxiety, anger, discomfort, all those kind of things, when you start reframing those in a way where you start neutralizing the emotion, that's when you can get a lot of freedom of mind and clarity, peace of mind, and you'll enjoy your day more as well. That's been the experience that I've been having and that I continue to look for now as well. It's like what is psychological torture for me is living life in such a way where I'm constantly chasing feelings. It's things that happen more on an unconscious level. By bringing it back to simple questions and also having spaces in your life where you're actually having quiet reflection, that's where you can start making changes, because otherwise you're just on autopilot throughout your day with the same patterns, the same assumptions. When you start breaking those patterns, those assumptions, and start noticing the feelings, it gives a lot of freedom to you. You can actually do the things then that you wanted to do because you got less resistance around that. So that's today's episode. It's an important one. It's something that I continue to focus on, because I know that from feeling through the anxiety and from facing whatever fears, whatever stories I have, that gives me more space to create. That's where I can create the podcast. That's where I've created my first book. That's where I can have a vision for the future. So when you're breaking through these emotions, breaking them down, dissolving them, integrating them into yourself, gives you more space in your mind to actually go, this is actually what I want. This is the vision I have for my life. I'm no longer afraid in my own mind to say that this is what I want, this is what I see for myself. You don't have those self-doubts and those anxiety and that anger and stuff saying that you're not good enough, and you start seeing that for what it is, gives you more space in your mind to have vision and purpose and direction. So start small. Do it consistently each day. Sit with those emotions. Ask better questions. Just today, start with that question: what is the anxiety here to show me? See it as a friend rather than an enemy. With practice over time, that'll start playing out a bit more in your life as well. When those emotions come up in the day to day, by doing it consistently over time, you'll be better at noticing when that anxiety is coming up. So you'll notice that more in your exchanges with people, rather than, I can remember a time when I didn't notice any of the emotions in between. I just saw the person and the person triggered the emotion. I didn't think about it at all. I had no awareness around it. What we're doing here is gradually bringing in awareness to that emotion, which is binding you to that outcome. We're breaking those outcomes you don't want in your life by simply looking at the emotion and the questions you're asking yourself. So I hope that's helpful. It's been helpful in my life to do that and to continue to do this. And so I think on the next podcast, we're going to talk about confidence. I've got a guy who is a confidence coach. So he's going to share some simple tips and advice to tap into more of a confident feeling as well. So what you'll find play out as well is that, well, from the way I look at it, it's just feeling into things. It's like confidence is a natural byproduct of being comfortable in yourself, being comfortable in your emotions. Oftentimes that will come to breathing. Just breathing, that's a simple tip. Even with your posture as well, standing up straight and stuff, you'll notice that a lot more when you're not trapped in the emotions. I've noticed a lot in the last year. I've noticed that how much my body tenses up when I'm working on a problem that I can't solve. So because I've been doing a lot of the internal work and emotional work, I'm more aware now of how my body kind of holds itself when I'm stressed out and stuff. So gradually over time, it's starting to loosen out a bit. It's not an overnight cure, but it's definitely progress. So that's the next episode. We're going to talk about confidence. Hope you enjoyed today's episode about anxiety. Until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.